Living in a house with three women was never easy, but when did I become the unwanted guest in my own home? For 18 years of marriage, I watched my wife Elaine and our teenage daughters, Madison and Lily, slowly transform our family dynamic into the girls' club, where everything became girls only. Movie nights, girls only. Shopping trips, girls only. Even our annual summer vacation somehow became a girls' getaway. Meanwhile, I became nothing more than the walking ATM who kept the lights on and the credit cards working. I tried to join in to be part of their world, but was always met with eye rolls and dismissive comments about ruining their girl time. Before I tell you what happened when I finally stood up for myself, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever felt taken for granted by the people closest to you, and subscribe if you want more stories about finding your voice when everyone expects you to stay silent. To understand how I ended up feeling like a stranger in my own home, you need to know how it all began. I am Glenn, 35 years old, and I have worked as a software engineer for the same company for over 15 years. My wife Elaine and I met in college, dated for 3 years, and got married when we were both 23. The early years of our marriage were everything I could have hoped for. We made decisions together, shared household responsibilities, and genuinely enjoyed building our life as a team. When Madison was born 2 years into our marriage, we were ecstatic first-time parents. Elaine took 6 months of maternity leave, then returned to her marketing job while we juggled childcare responsibilities. We still had date nights, family outings, and maintained our identity as both individuals and a couple. Even after Lily came along 2 years later, we managed to keep that balance for a while. The shift happened gradually when the girls were 4 and 2. Elaine started expressing dissatisfaction with missing milestones while at work, and we had many late-night discussions about our options. Eventually, we agreed that she would leave her job to become a stay-at-home mom. It made financial sense, since childcare for 2 kids nearly matched her take-home pay, and I was advancing in my career with significant salary increases each year. It will only be until both girls are in school, Elaine assured me. Then I will go back to work. That never happened. As the girls entered elementary school, Elaine became deeply involved in their activities, the PTA, and our neighborhood social scene. My role gradually shifted to being the financial provider while Elaine managed the home front. At first, I was perfectly content with this arrangement. I was proud to support my family and happy that my daughters had such a present, involved mother. The girls-only phenomenon began innocently when Madison turned 10 and Lily was 8. It started with Saturday shopping trips where Elaine would announce, "We are having a girls' day at the mall." I thought nothing of it, even encouraged it. What father wants to spend hours watching his daughters try on clothes? But then came girls' movie night on Fridays, when I would arrive home excited to relax with my family, only to find them huddled on the couch with snacks and a romantic comedy. "Sorry, Glenn. This is girls' movie night." "You would hate this film anyway," Elaine would say, not even pausing the movie to greet me after a 50-hour work week. I would retreat to my home office, telling myself it was fine they needed their bonding time. But then, Sunday cooking sessions became girls' cooking club, and even our annual summer trips started being planned without my input. "We are thinking of a spa weekend in San Diego this summer." Elaine mentioned casually over dinner one night. "That sounds fun." "When are we going?" I asked. Madison giggled and exchanged looks with her mother. "Dad, it is a girls' trip. You would be so bored at the spa all day." I swallowed my disappointment. "So what am I supposed to do that week?" Elaine shrugged. "You could go fishing with your brothers or something. You are always saying you do not get enough guy time." That was true, but only because every moment outside work was dedicated to a family that increasingly excluded me. I tried creating father-daughter activities, but they were always met with excuses. When I suggested taking Madison fishing, she claimed she had too much homework. When I offered to teach Lily how to change the oil in the car, a skill I thought would serve her well. She wrinkled her nose and said, "That is gross, Dad." The most painful moment came when I overheard Madison talking to Elaine in the kitchen. I was walking down the hall when I caught my daughter saying, "Should we ask Dad to help with the college tour next month? Only if we need him to pay for the plane tickets." Elaine replied with a laugh. "Otherwise, he will just slow us down." I stood frozen in the hallway, the realization washing over me I had become nothing but a financial resource to my own family. That night, I sat alone in my home office and looked through our family photos from the past decade. In the early ones, I was central to the images, proudly holding my daughters or with my arm around Elaine. In more recent photos, I was often absent or at the edge of the frame, as if I were an afterthought in their lives. That was the moment I knew something had to change. The financial imbalance in our household had grown so extreme that I hardly recognized it anymore. As the sole income provider, I worked 60-hour weeks to maintain our upper-middle-class lifestyle in an expensive suburb of Boston. Our mortgage alone was $2,800 monthly for a 4-bedroom colonial that Elaine had insisted we needed for entertaining and the girls having their own space. Madison and Lily both attended prestigious private schools with combined tuition costs of $4,500 monthly. When Madison turned 16, we added a new Honda to our expenses at Elaine's insistence that our daughter needed a safe, reliable vehicle. That added another $700 monthly, plus the $500 I was still paying for Elaine's SUV. Our credit card bills routinely ran between $3,000 and $5,000 each month. Elaine managed all household finances, paying bills from our joint account, where my paychecks were directly deposited. For years, I trusted her completely with this responsibility, reviewing statements only casually during tax season. That trust was shattered last summer when I discovered a $7,000 credit card charge for a girls' weekend in Las Vegas that I knew nothing about. When I questioned Elaine, she seemed genuinely surprised by my concern. The girls and I needed a break, and Madison deserved something special for finishing her junior year with straight by day, as she explained dismissively. "Do not worry, I put it on the card with the travel points. That is not the point," I tried to explain. "We should discuss expenses this large before making them." Elaine rolled her eyes. "Glenn, you are being ridiculous. You make plenty of money. Besides, I handle all the finances anyway. I know what we can afford." That conversation replayed in my mind for weeks afterward. Had it always been this way, I began paying closer attention to our spending patterns and realized something disturbing. While no expense was spared for Elaine and the girls, my own needs were consistently minimized. When I mentioned needing new running shoes because mine had holes, Elaine suggested I wait until they went on sale. When my laptop died after 6 years of use, Madison questioned whether I really needed a new one since I have a computer at work. Yet that same week, Lily received an iPad Pro because all her friends have one. The most revealing example came on my birthday last year. I received a store-bought cake and cards from my family, along with a new tie that still had the clearance tag partially attached. 2 weeks later, for Elaine's birthday, there was a catered dinner party with 20 guests and a designer handbag that I later discovered cost over $1,000 charged to my credit card without discussion. "Did you like the tie?" Elaine asked when I mentioned the disparity. "It is not about the tie," I tried to explain. "It is about feeling valued equally in this family." She patted my hand condescendingly. "You are such a simple man, Glenn. That is what I have always loved about you." I swallowed the hurt and retreated once again, wondering when I had become invisible in my own home. Despite working tirelessly to provide for them, I received no appreciation, no consideration, and, increasingly, no respect. I was the human ATM expected to dispense funds without question, while receiving nothing in return, not even the courtesy of being included in major financial decisions. As I reviewed our expenses, another pattern emerged. The girls' only activities were getting more elaborate and expensive. There were spa days, shopping sprees, weekend trips, and expensive restaurant meals, all exclusive of me and all funded entirely by my labor. Meanwhile, I wore the same 2 pairs of work pants in rotation and drove a 10-year-old sedan that needed maintenance I kept putting off because the family budget was tight this month. The irony was suffocating. I created the wealth that funded their exclusive activities, yet I was made to feel selfish for questioning any expense or for wanting to participate in family life. Something had to give, and soon. Our 18th wedding anniversary should have been special. I had been dropping hints for weeks suggesting we could get a sitter for the girls and have a nice dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. But as the day approached, Elaine made no mention of any plans. The morning of our anniversary, I placed a card on her pillow before leaving for work. When I returned home that evening with flowers, I found the house empty except for a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to dinner with the girls. Leftover lasagna in the fridge. Do not wait up, E. I stood in the silent kitchen, flowers dangling from my hand, completely stunned. She had forgotten. Or worse, she remembered, but did not care. Either way, I was alone on the day we were supposed to celebrate our marriage. The lasagna sat in the fridge, a cold reminder of my place in this household, an afterthought. I grabbed my keys and left, driving aimlessly until I found myself at a quiet bar downtown. I sat at the counter nursing a whiskey when an older man took the stool beside me. "Rough day," he asked, noticing my untouched drink and wedding ring. "18th anniversary," I replied. My wife forgot. Or decided it was not worth celebrating. Hard to tell which is worse. The man Walter turned out to be recently divorced after 32 years of marriage. As we talked, I found myself telling this stranger things I had never admitted aloud: how isolated I felt in my own home, how taken for granted, how increasingly resentful of the girls' only culture that excluded me while depending entirely on my financial support. "Son, let me give you some advice from the other side of divorce," Walter said after listening patiently. "If all you are to them is an ATM, cut off the money supply and see what happens. You will know where you stand real quick." I dismissed his suggestion initially as too extreme, but the idea lingered. The next day, I called my oldest friend Ryan for lunch and laid out the whole situation. "I am not saying Walter is right about cutting them off completely," Ryan said carefully, "but he has a point about boundaries. When was the last time you asserted any financial control in your house? I could not remember. Years, certainly. It might be time to see a professional," Ryan suggested. "Not just a marriage counselor, though that might help too, but a financial advisor who can help you restructure things." The following week, I met with a financial advisor who reviewed our situation with growing concern. "Mr. DeBlise, that Mr. A.T.Z. Walker, you have created a financially unsustainable dynamic," she explained. "Your family is spending beyond your means, even with your substantial income. More concerning is the power imbalance this creates." She helped me develop a plan that would allow me to maintain essential support for my family while regaining financial control. The core of the plan involved opening a new personal bank account, redirecting my direct deposit, and creating a household budget that allocated reasonable funds for necessities while requiring discussion and agreement for discretionary spending. As I left her office with my new plan in hand, I felt a curious mixture of anxiety and liberation. For the first time in years, I was taking concrete action to change my situation. That weekend, with the house to myself during yet another girls' shopping trip, I opened a new bank account, changed my direct deposit information for the next pay period, and created a detailed spreadsheet outlining my new financial safe approach. The plan was simple. I would continue to cover the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and the girls' school tuition directly. I would provide Elaine with a reasonable monthly allowance for household expenses. All major purchases and non-essential spending would require discussion and mutual agreement. Credit card limits would be reduced, and I would take over paying those bills directly. It was not about punishing them. It was about creating financial boundaries that reflected respect for my contribution and recognized my right to be part of decision-making in a family I supported. It was about being seen as a person, not a wallet. Sunday evening, as everyone returned home laden with shopping bags, I knew the moment had come. I called a family meeting, something we had not had in years. I need to talk to all of you about our family finances. I began trying to keep my voice steady as 3 pairs of eyes stared at me with mild irritation at having their evening interrupted. Can this wait? Glenn the Bachelor finale is starting in 10 minutes, Elaine said, already reaching for the remote. No, it cannot wait. I replied more firmly than I usually spoke. This is important. I explained the changes I was making to our financial arrangements, keeping my tone factual and unemotional. As I spoke, their expressions transformed from annoyed to shocked to outraged. You cannot do that. Elaine was the first to react. You cannot just unilaterally change how we handle money. Actually, I can, I said calmly. I am simply taking responsibility for the money I earn and ensuring it is used in ways that reflect the needs and values of our entire family, not just part of it. Madison, our 17-year-old, jumped in. This is so controlling. You are being totally selfish. Is it selfish to want to be included in my family's activities? To have a say in how money is spent? To be more than an ATM? I asked her directly. That is not fair, Dad, Madison shot back. We invite you to stuff all the time. Name one family activity in the last month that was not labeled girls only, I challenged. Her silence was telling. 15-year-old Lily just stared at her lap, tears welling in her eyes. She eventually stood and ran from the room without speaking. Her reaction hurt the most. I had always been closer to my younger daughter, and seeing her upset made me question my approach, if only momentarily. Elaine asked the girls to leave so we could talk privately. Once we were alone, her demeanor changed completely. Glenn, honey, she said, sliding closer on the couch, her tone suddenly sweet. I know you have been feeling left out lately, and I am sorry about that. But this is not the way to fix things. You are overreacting. When that approach did not work, she tried anger. Do you realize how embarrassing this will be? What will I tell my friends when my card is declined at lunch? Have you thought about that? You could tell them you need to check with your husband before spending large amounts of money, I friends suggested. The same way I would consult with you before making major purchases with our shared resources. The conversation devolved from there. Elaine cycled through various emotional tactics, tears, accusations, threats, and finally, icy silence. She stormed off to the guest bedroom, declaring she could not even look at me. That first week was excruciating. The house felt like a war zone. No one spoke to me directly. Meals were eaten in strained silence, or more often without me, as they opted for takeout I was pointedly not included in. Doors slammed. Whispered conversations stopped when I entered rooms. The real test came that Saturday when my first paycheck was deposited into my new account instead of our joint account. I had transferred enough money to cover the mortgage and utilities, but had not yet provided the allowance I had planned for Elaine. I was waiting for her to be willing to discuss the budget rationally. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone exploded with texts and calls from Elaine. Her credit card had been declined while shopping at the mall with the girls. Fix this right now, she demanded when I answered. We are standing here at the register with people waiting behind us. I would be happy to discuss the monthly budget when you get home, I replied calmly. For now, perhaps use the cash you have or the emergency card I left in the kitchen drawer. She hung up on me. That evening, I sent all 3 of them a detailed email outlining the new budget, including a reasonable allowance for Elaine and smaller but fair allowances for each of the girls. I also included a proposal for weekly family meetings to discuss finances and plan activities that included everyone. No one responded to my email, but the following morning I discovered printed copies in the trash can covered in angry scribbles. The situation escalated beyond what I had anticipated when Elaine called my parents. I learned about this when my phone rang on a Tuesday evening, and my father's gruff voice came through the speaker. "Son, your mother and I got a disturbing call from Elaine today. She says, you have cut off the family financially. What is going on?" I explained the whole situation, including the years of exclusion, the thoughtless spending, and my attempts to create a more balanced family dynamic. To my surprise, after a long silence, my father chuckled. "Sounds to me like you finally grew a spine," he said. "Your mother and I were wondering when you would notice what was happening in that house." "You knew?" I asked, stunned. "Of course we knew. Every time we visited, you were treated like a boarder, not the head of the household. But this was something you needed to recognize yourself." That conversation gave me strength, but the home front only grew more contentious. Elaine enlisted her friends in her campaign against me. I received calls and texts from women I barely knew, telling me how disappointed they were in my behavior and how I was emotionally abusing my family by controlling the money. Meanwhile, Madison upped the ante by declaring she wanted to transfer schools for her senior year because she was too embarrassed to face her friends now that we were poor. The irony that her $60,000 a year education was still being fully paid did not seem to register with her. The most hurtful moment came when I overheard Elaine on the phone with her sister discussing consulting a divorce attorney. "I just need to figure out how to get maximum alimony and child support," she said, unaware. I was within earshot. "He is making over $200,000 a year now, so I should be set." That conversation felt like a knife to the heart. After 18 years together, was that all I was worth to her? A potential alimony check. I suggested marriage counseling that night, but Elaine flatly refused. "The problem is not our marriage," she insisted. "The problem is that you have become controlling and abusive with money." I realized then that she truly did not see her behavior as problematic. In her mind, my income belonged to her, and asserting any control over it was an act of aggression. The gulf between us seemed impossibly wide. Some neighbors and colleagues who heard Elaine's version of events began treating me differently. I received concerned looks at neighborhood barbecues and was excluded from the fantasy football league I had been part of for years. Without my side of the story, I had been cast as the villain, the controlling husband who financially abused his innocent family. I began to question myself. Was I taking too drastic an approach? Should I simply accept my role as provider without expectation of inclusion or appreciation? Was I destined to be alone in a house full of people who saw me as nothing but a resource? Then, exactly 4 days into this new reality, something unexpected happened. A soft knock came at my home office door late one evening. When I opened it, Lily stood there looking uncertain. "Dad, can we talk?" Lily asked hesitantly, her eyes darting down the hallway as if worried about being seen. I opened the door wider. "Of course, come in." Lily sat on the small sofa in my office, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. At 15, she was at that awkward age between child and young woman, and tonight she looked decidedly like the former vulnerable and unsure. "I miss you," she said finally, her voice small. "I know Mom and Madison are mad at you, and I'm supposed to be mad too, but I just miss how things used to be." Something in my chest loosened at her words. "I miss you too, Lily, more than you know." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "Mom keeps saying you do not love us anymore because you cut off our money, but that does not feel true." "Is it true, Dad?" "No," I said firmly. "That is absolutely not true. I love you and your sister more than anything in this world. This was never about not loving you or wanting to support you. It was about feeling like a valued member of this family, not just a wallet." Lily nodded slowly. "I kind of get it. It is like when Madison and her friends let me hang out with them, but only if I let them borrow my stuff or do things for them. It feels bad. Her simple analogy hit home. Yes, exactly like that. I do not think we meant to make you feel that way, she continued. At least I did not. It just sort of happened. Mom would say, girls only. And it seemed fun at first, like a special club. I did not realize you were being left out so much. We talked for over an hour that night. Lily confessed she had often felt pressured to choose between her parents, with Elaine subtly encouraging loyalty to the girls' team. She admitted she missed our father-daughter fishing trips that had somehow disappeared over the years. Could we maybe go fishing this Saturday? She asked tentatively. Just you and me like we used to. My heart soared. I would love that. That Saturday morning, Lily and I snuck out early, fishing gear loaded in my car. We spent a peaceful day by the lake, catching nothing but enjoying everything about being together. When we returned home, Elaine was waiting, arms crossed. Where have you two been all day? She demanded. Before I could answer, Lily spoke up. Dad and I went fishing. It was really fun. You could have asked me first, Elaine said, directing her anger at me. Why, Lily asked, surprising us both. You and Madison do stuff all the time without asking Dad. Why can he not spend time with me? Elaine had no good answer for that. The moment marked a shift in our household dynamics. Lily had broken ranks, choosing a relationship with her father over the girls' only solidarity that had dominated our home. Madison observed this change with initial disdain, but her attitude began to soften when she experienced the first real consequence of our new financial reality. Her request for $800 for a senior class trip came after the monthly allowance was spent. Instead of simply saying no, I sat down with her to look at options. You could use some of next month's allowance, or you could earn the money yourself with a part-time job, I suggested. Madison was appalled at the suggestion of working. Dad, I am taking 4 AP classes. I do not have time for a job. Then you might need to prioritize your spending differently, or wait until you have saved enough, I explained patiently. That is how budgeting works in the real world. Grudgingly, she took a weekend job at a local coffee shop. 2 weeks later, she came to me with a different perspective. Do you know how many hours I have to work to earn $100 after taxes? She asked, genuinely shocked. And then some girl comes in and orders a $7 latte and does not even tip. I keep thinking about all the times I spent that much without thinking about it. It was the beginning of Madison's financial education, something I should have insisted on years earlier. As she worked for her own money, she began to see her previous spending habits in a new light. She even apologized for calling me selfish, though she maintained I could have handled the changes less dramatically. The most significant shift came when Elaine, after being turned down for 3 credit cards in her name alone, began job hunting. After 15 years as a stay-at-home mom, she struggled with gaps in her resume and changes in the marketing field. Her frustration was evident, but so was her determination. For the first time in years, I saw glimpses of the driven, capable woman I had married. I had an interview today, she announced at dinner one evening, about 4 months into our new arrangement. It was the first time she had voluntarily spoken to me at a meal in weeks. It is just an administrative role at a marketing firm, but it could lead to something in my field eventually. That is great, I said sincerely. I know you will impress them. She got the job, and with it came a new sense of pride and independence. Her first paycheck was modest, but the way she studied it carefully, planning how to spend her own earned money, told me something fundamental had changed in her perspective. 6 months after I had reclaimed financial control, we finally sat down as a family to truly discuss our situation. The conversation was difficult, but necessary. Elaine acknowledged with obvious reluctance that she had taken me for granted. I got comfortable with the arrangement we had, she admitted. It was easier to think of you as the provider and me as the decision-maker for everything else. I did not realize how excluded you felt. Madison and Lily both apologized for participating in the girls-only culture that had pushed me to the periphery of family life. We established new traditions, family movie nights, where we rotated who chose the film's Sunday cooking sessions, where Lily and I prepared dinner together, and monthly financial meetings where all major expenses were discussed openly. The girls' club still existed, but it was no longer the defining feature of our household. Elaine and the girls still had their special activities, but they were balanced with family time and one-on-one parent-child activities for everyone. Most importantly, there was a new atmosphere of respect and consideration. I was no longer the ATM, but a full member of the family with feelings and needs worthy of acknowledgement. Sometimes being taken for granted is not about what others do to you, but what you allow them to do. What boundaries have you had to set in your own relationships to be truly valued? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about family dynamics and personal growth. And do not forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Thank you for listening, and remember that respect in relationships is not optional, it is essential.